Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy, back in the studio here at All Points TV. Man, it's good to be back. It's a wonderful spring day. We actually have some warm weather. The rain's coming in.
And you guys are the crew that he hired, the Compassion Club hires up on the roof of the studio now, trying to prevent it from leaking. So thank you again so much, guys. I mean, that's right. It's great. It's going to be great to have a new roof on this place. I can't express how much that means to me. So
cool. Right. Thank you, John. We definitely appreciate that. We definitely appreciate our club members for helping out. We've been doing this podcast now for 10 years, and it's nice that we can finally give back a little bit. So, yeah, you guys are helping us out. We appreciate it. The Genesee County Compassion Club helping keep All Points TV a thing. And, we're putting the roof on right now. Right now.
Because just a few months before that, the tree limb from the tree across the way ripped out the mast, electrical mast coming here, and that was $1,800. We shut down better part of 2 months almost to get that back. So it's been obstacle after obstacle. So
it is.
It has been.
Running a business is tough, even the ones that don't make money.
That's the hardest time to keep going.
Yeah. But no, we're definitely glad to be able to be a part of it. We feel that All Points TV is an important thing. And, as I continue to see media evolve, I think it's going to be more and more important for us to have local, non-biased points of views being given to the public. I mean, reporting on news and giving those opinions. I mean, when you turn on the TV today or the phone, whatever it is you're watching, the big stuff that gets advertised, it gets pushed in your face, it's always got something going on behind it that's funded with money. And, we need money here too at the studios, obviously, to keep the lights on and so on. But it's not so we can try to sell you something or to push a certain point of view down your throat. And, it's good to have alternative views as well. So All Points TV, man, we can't thank them enough for letting us do this for the last 10 years. And I'm really thankful that the club is able to help out and give back in a certain way. So thank you, club. Thank you, G3C. You guys made it happen. And like I said, you might hear some construction going on during the show today. All right? Not a bad thing. Hey, we got some other stuff coming up at the club. We do have our soup kitchen coming up. I want to make mention of that. I think it just happened, though. No. It's about to happen, 21st, Tuesday. So next Tuesday, if you guys could help out, we really could use your help at the soup kitchen. Also, big event coming up here in June. We've got our Caregivers Cup. This is an awesome event being put on out in Birch Run. Tickets are available at the club. Just see George. This is a huge event. It's turning into bigger and bigger and bigger events. You're not going to want to miss this. There's a plethora of musical artists and performers going to be showing up there. And recently added to the ticket is, I believe, one of Bob Marley's sons. And the name's escaping me right now, but obviously, that's a big name. One of his sons coming out, performing for us, headlining the show, if you will. It's just going to be awesome. There's going to be camping, games, and of course, obviously, a Caregiver Cup. So for you guys that are out there interested, wanting to compete, make sure you check this out. It's an event that you don't want to miss. I heard about it, heard advertisements on it on the radio just the other day, 103.9, I think it was giving away some free tickets. Again, this is up in Birch Run. It's June, I want to say June 21st to the 23rd. If I don't have those dates right, you can check our G3C page. Go to Genesee County Compassion Club on Facebook for all of our dates, events, and details. And definitely encourage you to check that one out. Tell your friends about it. It's going to be one of the big events this summer, I think, around the area. And the nice thing is it's being put on by people who care, people who understand the industry, not some California company just coming in to rake the money and then leave. This is like us for us. All right, so check this out. Caregiver Cup's going to be amazing. All right, let's get into the news. I don't have a lot to cover today, but I do want to get you guys up to date with what's been happening here in Michigan and across the country. So without further ado, let's get this party started. We've got Michigan Task Force is the big thing I think that we probably want to discuss here in our own state. Part of the funds from the marijuana law, and I'm talking medical, have been specifically directed to police actions. Like they had a section in the bill that was to specifically hire more police officers and dedicate funds that are being generated from these medical marijuana facilities, fees and patients and the like, that funds that would be used to further police departments and to increase their coverage, if you will. So part of that now is this new task force that's been formed. And this is in the Detroit News. You can check it out for yourself if you'd like to see more details. But it is part of the Michigan State Police Unit, and it is being called the Marijuana and Tobacco Investigation Section. Basically, they spent their first full year of existence enforcing the tobacco tax and conducting background checks on applicants applying for medical marijuana facility licenses. Now it says the 40 detectives and civilian analysts across the state will begin addressing illegal marijuana operations while continuing to aid the marijuana regulatory agency in the licensing process. So it's kind of interesting. This task force has been formed. It's already been active, obviously, for a year, and now they're actually going to be starting to enforce their laws and going after these places that are not licensed. So we have yet to see. I did overhear rumors of a raid already happened. I don't want to give any more details on it, as I don't have much more concrete information or evidence on that, but could very well be a part of this, and it's definitely something to consider. This Detective First Lieutenant Chris Hawkins, he's a commander for the section. Basically, he says, their idea is to go out, stop these unlicensed facilities and others that have operated temporarily during the transition to a licensed market. That's basically their tasks. So, obviously, this is part of the deal. I mean, we signed up for it when we passed the law, and I know that a lot of folks like to say, well, you guys passed the law. No, we didn't. The Facilities Act was passed by our legislature, not by the people. But this was part of the package that they put in there with specific revenue generation and designation for police to specifically enforce the marijuana laws and the program as it's been written, and now it's coming to fruition. One of the big things they talked about in the article, and I thought this was interesting, is that they said they did still need to have the cooperation of the local prosecutors in order for them to go after, unscrupulous characters or people operating outside of the guidelines or unlicensed facilities. They obviously have to have cooperation from the local prosecution to go after these types of places. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this is done in certain areas. I mean, obviously, in order to have these facilities, you have to be licensed. That's what the whole point of them is. And, we don't want to see people getting caught in the crosshairs. Obviously, if there's somebody out there who's operating temporarily, they've submitted their application, paid their fees, they shouldn't be on the list, if you will. But there's also certainly a lot of other people out there that are just going willy-nilly, no license, whatever, and trying to be a big dog. One of the big things that they just recently approved, there was 3 companies that were approved last week for medical marijuana home delivery. And right now, you can go on Weed Maps, and there's about 205 marijuana delivery options, according to Stu Carter, who is the owner and CEO for Utopia Gardens, one of the places that was just recently approved for home delivery. So these are his direct competition. And I think that's a perfect example of what this is all about. We've got one guy who paid a whole lot of money in licensing fees for the ability to go do this, and yet there's 205 plus other people out there doing the same thing, offering the same service, who did not pay a fee, who did not get a license, who are not operating legally. And I guess that's the question right there is it legal or is it not? I'm a caregiver. I got my 5 patients. I've been delivering to many of them since day one now for 10 years. So obviously home delivery is not a problem. It is legal. But under what circumstances? I mean, if you've set up yourself a website and you're just running them out like Hungry Howie's, obviously that's not how it's supposed to work, and this is what it's talking about. So guys like Utopia Gardens who paid the money are definitely going to be wanting to see this happen. They feel, and his quote right in the paper is that they're stealing business that we've paid big annual licensing fees for. And this is the battle that's going to happen. It's going to play out, and it's going to continue to be this way. And we're just going to find out over time how nasty is it going to get. You've got people out there who feel like they have bought the right to do this and that other people should not have that right. And you've got other people whose livelihoods depend on this. They built their businesses from it, and they feel like, well, just because they didn't pay a fee, they put everything they had on the line. Why can't they do it if somebody else can't? Nobody's getting hurt. So this is kind of the problem with regulation, with licensing. And, I think it's one of those things that we're dealing with where obviously the government saw a cash opportunity, is trying to make the most of it, and potentially could even make the program fail because of their greediness, because of the amount of revenue they tried to build into this program. And that's something that they're seeing in other states where the black market continues to thrive because the regulated market is overtaxed and overregulated. So we'll have to see how this happens in Michigan. It's still in the developing stages, and there's certainly going to be some heartache along the way. There's no question about it. So we'll have to see what kind of support we get from our state attorney general, if there is any support from that. And of course, every case is individual and it's different, and they all have to be dealt with on an individual basis. So you can't lump everybody in. There are some bad apples in the bunch that are sort of giving bad names to the rest of the caregivers out there. And we want to weed these out. But the average caregiver out there is minding their P's and Q's. They are staying within their limits. They're dealing with their patients, and they're just trying to make ends meet. Going after these types of people, there's no advantageous plausibility for society in going after these people. You're going to take somebody who's trying to be a productive member of society and then stop their ability to produce, possibly incarcerate them, fine them, so on and so forth, and now they become a burden and a dependent on the rest of society. So what is it that we're really trying to accomplish here? I hope we take a good look at that from a broad perspective and see if there's a better solution out there. One of the other states that I wanted to mention today in our podcast is Kansas. And I made a comment a few months ago about what is the last state that's going to be the last state to legalize medical marijuana. What is that last state? Does anybody have a guess? I haven't gotten too many guesses from people, but Kansas is definitely on the list of being potentially the last state to legalize medical marijuana. And for those of us that have been with medical marijuana, been a part of this now in Michigan for 10 years, the idea that you would deny a patient access to cannabis is just preposterous. I mean, to the average person out there in Michigan right now, if you said, hey, would you put a cancer patient in jail, or an AIDS patient, or something, an MS patient? Would you incarcerate them? Would you arrest them? Would you prosecute them for using medical marijuana? And I think your average person in Michigan now would look at you like you're crazy. Like, of course not. That would be stupid. But yet they're still doing it in a lot of other states. And in fact, I think it was Arkansas or Nebraska, one of the two. We'll get to it here in just a minute. But it got us to 33. So 33 states now have some form of medical marijuana. That leaves, obviously, 17 of them out there yet that don't have anything and are still potentially prosecuting people for using this as medicine. It's insane. But insanity, it lives, it breathes, it's doing quite well, and apparently Kansas is chock full of it. So let me get into this article here. Mind you, Kansas does not have medical. Of course, they don't have recreational, so on and so forth. In 2000, or I guess since 2006, they've had 18 medical marijuana bills be introduced. One of them got a hearing at the Capitol, but it didn't go anywhere. Law enforcement officers representing several of the state's agencies and professional organizations testified against it, and the bill never even made it to a vote. This is quotes from their director of Kansas Bureau of Investigation, a top law enforcement agency in the state. He says, "I only ask that you give deference to the experience, to the opinions of law enforcement community," says Kirk Thompson. "We've seen the negative side of this issue." Well, I don't even want to get into that yet. It says the agency denied requests for interview with Mr. Thompson, didn't answer emailed questions about its marijuana enforcement strategy, but Thompson's statement echoes the position of many of the law enforcement agencies and organizations. And they argue that even legalization of medical marijuana would increase car accidents and violent crime and make it easier for foreign drug cartels to move weed onto the black market. Law enforcement officers say weed is inherently tied to violence, especially from Mexican cartels, and they report an increase in marijuana-related traffic stops in Kansas, especially since Colorado legalized recreational sales of the drug in 2014. They say, in every way, marijuana is driving up public health and public safety concerns. Jeffrey Stamm, the executive director of the Kansas City-based Midwest High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area under the Office of the National Drug Control Policy. It says, in terms of the pharmacology, the economic, the criminal, the social cost of marijuana use, cops are in fact the experts. That's what he says. I'm glad I don't live in Kansas. That's all I have to say. That is just so brick-headed to think that the police are somehow the experts on something that's medical. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And obviously they're enforcing policies of incarceration, criminalization. Here's a state that is surrounded, literally surrounded, by other states who do have access to marijuana. And yet they want to sort of keep their draconian practices alive and well. And they firmly believe it. And that's the problem with some of our bureaucracy. They so firmly believe in themselves and the system that they've built that they don't believe there could be any flaw to it, that's impossible. How could we be wrong? And this type of leadership is terrible. It's terrible. It's belligerent. And to make these sorts of claims without considering the other side of the story, without looking at other states' statistics, without putting patients first, it's preposterous. Says here, the agency doesn't track the origin of marijuana seizures in Kansas. They don't track whether the drugs came from inside the state or from another state, such as Colorado or California. They don't track if it came from international sources like a Mexican cartel. In an email, a spokesperson said the agency's statewide crime reporting system was extremely outdated, deriving statistics from police reports that don't distinguish which specific drugs were involved in an accident. So not only do we have this belligerent attitude, but we also have officers quoting information that is inaccurate, outdated, and irrelevant. And somehow the legislature, the people that make the decisions, that pass the laws, deem and give more credence and importance to what their words are than anybody else. And the police themselves are even saying, you should give us the credit. You should talk to us. We are the experts. And they're not. And this type of mentality is prevalent through all of our governments in all our states at all levels. And it is unfortunate, but it is our job as a public, as constituents, to help educate them kindly, professionally, so that we can get them on par and get them to be correct, if you will. I mean, be on the right side. I'm watching, anybody watching the Chernobyl thing on HBO? I mean, it's a perfect example. Here they were, the guys in charge of the place, and refused to believe that anything was wrong. But they were standing in the middle of it and dying from it at the same time. And here we are. No, not nearly as drastic of a situation going on in Kansas. But, for the person out there who has cancer, who has MS, has some other type of serious ailment, it is a life and death situation for them. And for them to be treated in this manner, to be considered without consideration, is truly dehumanizing. I mean, we really need to take a look at this from a broader perspective. All right, let's move on here. Kansas sucks. Don't go to Kansas. Let's talk about Nebraska. Nebraska, let's see here. They're about to vote in medical marijuana. Let me see here. Or at least they're debating it. So another state here, obviously, they need to have some medical marijuana. It says here, LB 110 made it through committee last week. It would legalize medical marijuana. If passed, a patient would not be allowed to smoke marijuana. It would limit the amount that they can possess. All of this comes as activists put to work a separate legalization measure on the 2020 ballot with fewer restrictions. So there you go. That's a little nutshell on what's going on in Nebraska. it's interesting how different states propose things because they think, well, this language will get approved, people will vote for this, this won't. And whether they're right or not, it's hard to tell, obviously. But, Lincoln, Nebraska, okay, you're going to legalize medical marijuana, but you're not going to allow anybody to smoke it. Knowing full well that within a couple of years, you're probably going to legalize it for everybody anyways, for every purpose anyways. Again, belligerent, uneducated choice, and impractical as well. All right, moving on here. Nebraska, at least hopefully they'll get something. Arkansas. Arkansas just opened up, one of the southern states that does have medical marijuana. Just opened up their dispensaries here a couple days ago. And this is a good example as well of government intervention. They only approved 3 different places in Arkansas to actually dispense medication. There was a report, I think it was something like they had sold 26 pounds in the first day, these individual retail stores. And the price is at $15 a gram. So that's what happens when you don't have competition, I guess, or over-regulation. But, at least people can get access down there in Arkansas. I'm sure Bill Clinton's toking a big one right now. But, 26 pounds of marijuana sold in the first few days of sales. Of course, this is medical marijuana. Only 2 dispensaries, not 3, 2 dispensaries. And, again, charging $15 per gram accordingly. So, there you have it. All right, next state. I want to talk about this real quick. I think it's Missouri. And I think you get the theme of what I'm talking about today if you just keep listening to these stories. Kansas City, Missouri. One business owner describes a race to get a license for a medical cannabis facility. And again, mind you, Missouri, this is right next to Kansas, the state that we just got done talking about. But if you hop across the river, and in fact, a lot of people don't know that Kansas City, there's a Kansas City, Kansas, and if you go across the river, there's a Kansas City, Missouri. If you live there, it's kind of like one city, but at any rate, little geographical information. It says here, the article, Missouri has made $3.6 million off of medical marijuana pre-applications, but many will not even get a license. Sounds similar at all here? It says at least 510 organizations have pre-filled their applications in Missouri, but only 388 licenses will be granted. The state will grant 192 licenses for dispensaries, 60 for cultivation, and 86 for manufacturing. The pre-app doesn't really help us because we don't know if it's really going to happen or not, says business owner Brent Gunnels. Gunnels and his partner, Brent, not Eric, and his partner establishing Treehouse Cafe Midtown and a CBD-centered coffee shop with non-alcoholic cocktails before they move on to medical marijuana. It costs $6,000 to apply to open a dispensary and $10,000 to open a cultivation facility. The fees are non-refundable. So, yeah, it sounds a lot like what Michigan did. They've collected a whole boatload in fees. A lot of people are not going to get licenses and not getting their fees back. And clearly it's just a cash grab. I mean, it doesn't cost $6,000 to tell somebody no. All right. I'm sure it has some cost to it, but I'm sure it's nowhere near the amount that they're charging. And this is a dangerous trend, folks. I know that this seems to be somewhat acceptable for the mainstream. People think, okay, well, if you're going to allow marijuana, the sin, then sin tax it. And so there's this attitude that that's perfectly fine. Government needs more money. So go ahead and take it out of there because you don't really need that stuff. Anyways, well, let me remind you, this is not recreational. This is medical. Okay, so they do need it. We don't treat any other medication in this way, shape, or form. It would be disgusting to do so. And furthermore, when we think about the purposes here and so on and so forth, government stepping in and saying, all right, we're going to assign an arbitrary number, an arbitrary fee generated out of thin air, no correlation to actual cost or dollars spent, and we're just here to take money, make money. That is a dangerous trend. I can't tell you how dangerous that is because your fees from the government are supposed to be based on something, not just a number pulled out of thin air. You're going to see this expand, and it's going to roll into other areas. All right, that's just my personal opinion, but I think this is a spiral that we've started on, down a slope, if you will, slippery slope. We're on the slide, and I think we're going there. And I don't know what's next. You know what I mean? I don't know. Obviously, you just heard about Denver decriminalizing magic mushrooms. Maybe that's where we're going next. Maybe magic mushrooms for everybody. Maybe it's no prohibition at all. Maybe all drugs should be legal, and we should just tax the crap out of them, let government charge whatever they want, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not saying that this is the way to go, but I do think that we need to be careful about allowing government to just pick and choose what they want to do, especially when it comes to regulating entire industries such as like this one here. So I don't think our work's done here in Michigan. I know that the legislature has no interest in passing anything at this point. Sure, there's different people that will bring up, bills that they'd like to talk about or whatever. But in all, after going through this tornado the last 10 years and having these different laws get passed, 3 different ones now actually, and with a moderation, really you could count it 4 times. So that's a lot. It takes up a lot of time at the legislator's schedule, and they have a lot of other issues to deal with. So there's probably not any type of legislative change that's going to occur in the next year or two. Unlikely. So it is down to the administration, and that means people like our governor, people like our attorney general, people like the Michigan State Police Chief, people like that are accountable, that do have a public presence, and not all of them are something that you can vote for, but they certainly can be influenced by people that we do vote for. And like with things like this task force coming up, so on and so forth, are we here to make victims out of victimless crimes? Is that what we're here to do? Are we here to just simply enforce oligarchy to make sure that these corporate fat cats get their return on investment? Is that what we're here to enforce? Or are we here really to enforce people's safety and well-being? And I think that that's something to be considered. I know that the majority of our caregivers out there have that in mind. They're concerned with their patients. They're concerned with their products, with their reputation, their quality that they're putting out there. They take things personally. It's their craft. And, not that some of these other large conglomerates won't have that as well, but when your motives are based around one thing, money, you tend to lose a lot of the other things that go along with it, like care and love and stuff like that. So anyways, I'll get off the soapbox. That's the news for today. I definitely hope you guys appreciate and enjoying that. Share it around. It's all good stuff. But biggest thing is, man, we're a family. Big old Michigan here. Caregivers and patients are all a part of the same network. We've all got to look out for each other. And, when you see somebody getting charged, like these poor folks down here in Arkansas, $15 a gram for medication, these people are sick. Give them a break, all right? And I know that our caregivers do. So please make sure you, again, sign up for Soup Kitchen. I know Golf League's going strong. Kudos to you guys out there. Softball League's going good at the club. You guys won your first game last week. Hoorah. And hopefully you won't get rained out this week. We'll see. But we got the Soup Kitchen coming up. And again, don't forget about the Caregiver Cup. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to that. If you haven't been down to the G3C recently, please make sure you do. We got some awesome food items on the menu, new stuff. The French toast sticks are to die for real. They're unbelievable. And you don't even need to smoke weed to appreciate those. But it does help. All right, it does help. All right, John, thank you for being with me today. I appreciate it. And again, thank you, G3C, for helping out here at the studios. You guys right now, you don't know it, but you're putting the roof on the place. And I know John couldn't be more thankful, and all the people here that, rely on this place to put forth their material, their podcast. We couldn't do it without this place, obviously. And I'm just really thankful. So thank you very much for everybody who watches this and shares it.
It's like really everybody I talk to about that. They're just, even people who are not medical marijuana, advocates or even on board for that. They're just kept on repeating, like the Genesee County Compassion Club did that. I said, yeah. And they said, wow, I said, it's an expenditure and they don't have to do it. They're under no obligation contractually or anything. I said, they volunteered for this. And I said, it just, it chokes me up because the past week or so, I've had a lot of personal tragedy happen. So, it's just really kind of very touching. And, I'd like to thank them again. All the people listening, thank you very much for allowing your club to do this for us, and I can't express how much this is for us to have this done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. That's how things are supposed to work. John's been kind enough to let me come in here for the last 10 years and do this podcast for the club and not charge us a dime. Never asked for money, never asked for a thing. And so it is our privilege to be able to help back, to give back. And, that's how things are supposed to work, John. So thank you, club, for allowing us to be able to do this. Couldn't have done it without you. That's absolutely sure. And also shout out to Ace Home Innovations, guys right now who are doing the roof. If you need some work done on your home or whatever, give them a shout out. And I think I've got their info posted on the club page somewhere, but
we'll start putting it up too.
If you need the number, anything from roof, electric, home, whatever, you got it. These guys do it. Good, trustworthy, honest people, which is tough to find nowadays. That's for sure.
We had a crowd that was supposed to have done this back in the October of this year.
Yeah,
and it never materialized. So
took the money and ran. But if you need the job done right, give Handy Andy a call. That's what I call him. It's Ace Home Innovations. But his name's Andy, and he's a good guy and someone you can trust. So, but at any rate, thank you again, John, for being here today. All Points TV is a great place to be at. The G3C is even, I don't want to say better, John, but it is kind of better. We got weed there, so
yeah,
that's, you lose.
Well, I'm sorry. But I wouldn't mind having some around here, but, we do have people from law enforcement that might be inquiring and, and stuff like that.
It's legal now, dude. Relax.
I know, okay, but relax. I grew up, I get it. So I'm older than you are. And it's it was something that, the reason why I always had issues with it, if somebody's going to have a problem with a cop, and 25 people could have been in the group, I would have been the cop, the one the cop singled out to their ass. Yeah. Serious. So
well, I gotta admit, it's kind of funny because, being medical now for a while, you sort of, you have this exception, right? You've got this legal exception. You're able to have weed, and other people can't. And but you still kind of watch your P's and Q's. You go shopping, you got your kids with you, whatever. You don't want to go in reeking like weed and so on, be that guy. Some people don't care, but whatever, you know what I mean? And there's always that little bit of, oh crap, I smell like weed. Whether you've been smoking it or not, you're like me, you're always working in the garden, you stink. You know what I mean? And you're walking around, and every now and then you kind of, oh crap. And then you remember, oh yeah, that's right, I don't have to worry anymore, it's legal. So that's a good thing. It's definitely something to be thankful for. It should put a smile on your face if you're having a rough day. Just remember, weed is legal, all right, here in Michigan. So that's a good thing, all right? Okay, thanks for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Catch all our other shows here at All Points TV and get down to the Compassion Club and enjoy yourself a good time, all right? Have a great summer. Talk to you soon. See you.